The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right Side with Doug Billings, Right Side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Millennium of conflict. And as I said on Friday's show, Trump has negotiated the most significant peace deal in the history of history, ladies and gentlemen. No liberal in Washington's elected class, I mean, think Biden, think Harris, or any of their ilk, right, could come close to pulling that off. They talk and they appease while Trump holds accountability and then delivers deals. And so, I dug into that a lot last week. Don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I do think that we need to pay attention, see what Hamas really does. All of the hostages, all of the living ones are back home. The dead ones their bodies are back home. So that is all behind us. One interesting point, I haven't seen anyone else cover this. I mentioned it yesterday on X. Every one of the female prisoners have been killed or were killed. And it's barbaric. I just think that deserves some note, some coverage. Every one of the female prisoners dead, and God only knows, bless their hearts and bless their souls, what they went through before they were actually killed. You've got to compartmentalize that because, you can imagine the horror that they lived through prior to being executed. So hostages home, Trump signed the deal. He's in Egypt. I was worried because the last thing we needed, right, for those of you old enough to remember, the last thing we needed was another Anwar Sadat episode, right? But I watched the signing in a secured room, security. Trump shakes French President Macron's hand and makes him look like a cuck all over it again. Very hilarious on a lot of levels, but also very deeply meaningful. Trump noted in his speech that this is a historic dawn of a new Middle East, that Israel has won all that can be won as far as the force of arms is concerned. Now it's time for peace. Now it's time for peace. And he was thunderously greeted with applause. And there are people in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and others thinking, the regular relations opening up, that they're going to have a normalization of relations between these countries. And Trump didn't even rule out Iran in this and having a part in this if they come around to their senses. President Trump met with the hostage families, a new beginning for the region. But it's forged in biblical truth. This relationship that America has with Israel, not just strategic, it's bounded, I believe, by God himself. And from Genesis all the way through to Revelation, the covenant with the Jewish people is eternal. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And in our own backyard, we have Americans spewing hateful rhetoric against the Jewish people, fueled by radical leftists on campus protests, and even some in Congress who echo that terrorists should be treated as victims. Absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding. We got to stop that venom, folks. We've got to do everything we can to. Anti-Semitism just isn't It's just un-American and it's ungodly. We've got to embrace our Judeo-Christian heritage and be proud of it and embrace those who join us because we have others that will not. Ladies and gentlemen, also coming up today, this hour in the programs, Arizona Senator Mark Finchem, friend of mine, he's going to join us. We're going to talk about state of play in America, election integrity, and other issues surrounding those two topics. And James Comey, a communist. I'll be right back after this break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with me. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Doug Billings. You are on the right side, right where you belong, where we engage every day in determined prayer, determined patriotism. That's how we roll over here. Coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain. Hey, I got my YouTube channel back, by the way. Make sure you head over to YouTube after you get done listening to Real Talk Radio Network today. My channel over there, Welcome to the Right Side. And it was, I got the friendly letter last week from YouTube. Hey, we took your channel down in error. And welcome back. So it's good to be back and have all of the old videos. I was in Facebook jail for YouTube jail for 4 years, and yeah, quite a catalog of shows over there. You can see me all the way back in the beginning in 2020 when I started, all the way up for about 7 or 8 months of videos, and then here we are today back with you. But glad to be here on Real Talk. And you know what, folks? On a side note, before I get into this next topic, tell the folks out there who might be business owners, whether they're in Missouri or wherever you're listening from, because you know you've got this app that you're listening to us on from, and you're anywhere in the world. Last week we had people in Finland, New Zealand, Alaska, and everywhere in the United States, from sea to shining sea. Talk to your business owner friends. Talk to people who have something that's worthwhile, and have them give a call to Real Talk Radio. Advertise. Let's get the word. You know, it's the number one talk radio station going these days. The only truly conservative, as far as I'm concerned. The best conservative talk out there. Real Talk Radio. So, all right, the topic. Week 2, John Wick. I see you out there on Facebook. Hello, Elaine. Hello, Deborah. Cheryl, good to see you all out there keeping track of us on Facebook. Wherever you're watching, whether it's Rumble, whether you're listening to us on the app, thank you. I'm going to talk to you about the unconstitutionality. Buffalo, New York, Sandra. Wow, hello. Go Bills, except when they're playing the Chiefs. Thank you very much. Hey, property taxes, ladies and gentlemen. The cycle of elections that we're in, and candidates up for office, especially governors and members of your state legislature. We're going to have Mark Finchem on here at the bottom of the hour. You need to make sure that these candidates for office have the, as we say, the man parts to speak boldly about this topic and every topic, really, but this one in particular. This one's a popular one throughout the country. People in many states are quite literally being forced out of their homes because of property taxes. And I'm here to tell you that property taxes are unconstitutional. All it takes is somebody with a little bit of guts, other than me, besides me, along with me, to start saying this out loud and saying it often. You don't qualify as being constitutional if you interrupt, or if you prohibit, or if you stop someone's right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But that's what property tax does. It's not just a bill that you get in the mail once a year or once a quarter or whatever. It's outright theft wrapped all around bureaucratic red tape. I'm talking about how governments at every level are treating your home like it's their personal piggy bank, jacking up these assessed values, right? In quotes, assessed values. They come up with these assessed values out of thin air and forcing people to pay for unrealized gains. Paying for unrealized gains? Hello? Let that sink in. And they, you're not supposed to have any kind of, you're not supposed to be recognized as having taxable income until you sell something or there's a cash exchange, right? So this is not taxation. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, this is extortion, plain and simple, and it's flat out unconstitutional. Start talking about this. This is on the minds of millions of Americans. So I'm going to break it down from the ground up, and we're going, like I said, at the bottom of the hour, we're going to interrupt the conversation, have Mark Finchem come on, and then he'll be with us for that C, as I call it, C block. And then I'll come back with you and we'll finish this conversation. But Mark may have some things to say about this as well. I think, I'm a real believer in America getting back to the intent of the founding fathers. And the founding fathers were crystal clear in the Constitution. Taxes are supposed to be on income, not on the mere ownership of property that appreciates on paper. Remember this little thing that we have in our Constitution called the 16th Amendment? Well, I do. And I read the Constitution. Let me reach over here on my desk. I always have a copy handy. This is my pocket copy. I always keep one with me. You should too. 16th Amendment. It allows for income taxes. But income means actual cash in your pocket, right? Not some imaginary bump to your home's value because the market shifted or some assessor decided that your neighborhood got hot again, right? Oh, it's a hot market out there. This neighborhood's, oh boy, I got to assess this thing. The Supreme Court has hammered on this time and time again, but we don't seem to pay enough attention to it. There's a case out there, Eisner versus McComber, back in 1920, ladies and gentlemen. Well, and there's Elvis telling us we're up against another break. And we'll have Mark Finchem, I hope, when we come back. We're going to try to get him on. And if not, well, we'll continue this conversation regardless, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the tease. Stick around. I'll be right back, hopefully with Mark Finchem, right after this break. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings, where I am doing what I've been ordained by God to do. That is to save this republic with your help, ladies and gentlemen. To get involved in our local level of politics at the county level to save it. And speaking of county level politics, property tax. I see all of the comments all over social media. We have struck a nerve. So yes, when you pay off, Elaine, when you pay off your home, you still have to basically rent it from the government, don't you? Same thing for farms, ranches, business, whatever. Your car, come on. You never really own anything in America. That's the problem. And folks, I say it all the time. The American dream is not for rent. Thank you very much. You should not have to continually pay the government for items that you own. And it really is that simple. So before the break, by the way, Mark Finchem will be here at 1:30, just FYI. And it's actually a better thing that he's a little delayed in Arizona. He's a senator, and because this is something that I really didn't want to interrupt anyway, this property tax discussion. So in 1920, there's a case, Eisner versus Macomber, and the Supreme Court ruled that income has to be realized, meaning you have to sell something and get the profit before Uncle Sam can touch it. And you fast forward a more recent case in 2024, Moore versus the United States, where the court doubled down on their decisions with regards to this. No taxing unrealized gains, ladies and gentlemen. That's your home equity, America. It's not income until you cash out. But here's where it gets infuriating. And I mean, I live in Kansas, and if I know that you in Missouri feel the same pain, believe me, I was born and raised in Missouri. I still live right next door. I go back to Kansas City, back home all the time. People talking about this from every porch step and every dinner table and every online conversation that you see. In Kansas, get this, 4,000 homes have been foreclosed on this year alone because folks couldn't keep up with the skyrocketing property tax and the phony valuations of this that are going on out there. Your home appreciates, apparently, while you're still grinding Monday through Friday to pay off the mortgage. And suddenly then you're hit with a bill that treats that paper like real money, right? Like you're supposed to. It's not just unfair. I think it's a violation of due process under the 14th Amendment. Governments seizing property without just compensation, which flies right in the face of the Fifth Amendment's taking clause. And don't get me started on the uniformity requirement. See, Article 1. This is how you read this Constitution. I'm holding up for all of you listeners out there. Those of you watching can see, holding up my paper edition of the Constitution of the United States of America and the amendments and the Bill of Rights. And if you're unarmed with regards to all of this, you will forever be at the mercy of your county politic. And that's why I harp continuously on getting involved in your local level. The uniformity requirement in Article 1, taxes have to be applied equally, not arbitrarily, not arbitrarily jacked up based on some subjective appraisal that's really more fiction than it is any kind of science or mathematics. We've got families losing generational homes and farms over this nonsense. Widows, veterans, hardworking, blue-collar, salt-of-the-earth people who built their lives around that roof that's over their heads, and all of a sudden it's gone because they can't afford property tax, which is really just rent to the government. And this, don't get me, but the liberals or the rhinos, well, we've got to fund our schools and repair our infrastructure some way, Doug. It has nothing to do with funding schools or infrastructure. This is revenue addiction. We don't have revenue problems really in our states. We have spending problems, my friends. Politicians come along, all of a sudden it's election season, promising low taxes. Then let the assessors run wild and fill their coffers. It is the deep state at the local level. Unelected bureaucrats with unchecked power. And if you think it's just Kansas or Missouri, every state from California to Idaho to Montana to Texas to Maine, Alaska and Hawaii included, skyrocketing assessments based in fiction, not in reality, turning homeowners to renters in their own property. It is infuriating. We cannot. The call to action today for you folks is to get involved and call and hold. We are having, there will be elections this November and next, the midterms. And you will have people in your state running for governor, running for legislature, running for your local state Congress and Senate. Make sure you hold them accountable and get this topic on the table. There was a 63-page bombshell. I was in Miami County, Kansas a couple of days ago, and I met a guy by the name of Scott Estes, and he gave me some information. There's a 63-page bombshell document that he has that outlines 37 counts under state law and federal violations that will absolutely make your blood boil. It is Texas kind of in a way taking the lead on this. The facts, I'm just going to get them straight here and relay them to you just very quickly. The hard facts from these court cases that are in play, statutes and a powerhouse legal briefing that I've read that's got these officials squirming. And I mean, when I say officials, I mean the bad guys, the assessors, and all of those who are pushing these assessments and forgetting about how to do it fairly and equitably. So Scott Estes, I mentioned, he has put some brilliant things into play. It doesn't matter where you live, ladies and gentlemen. This does not matter where you live. So if in Missouri, Tennessee, Oregon, everywhere else in America, you can benefit from knowing about this. 37 counts ripping apart Kansas law. This is Scott Estes, who lives in Miami County, Kansas. 14 pages of federal constitutional slam dunks and 26 pages of rock-solid evidence to back it all up. The officials take an oath to uphold constitutions, right? You take an oath, I'm going to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I swear to God, da, 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 da. But then they turn around and they claim property valuations are subjective. That's baloney, folks. Property valuations are not subjective. The Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, the USPAP, says that this is the gold standard of appraisals, by the way. They demand, number one, objective math, data-driven assessments, not some whim where your house all of a sudden doubles overnight because the county needs more cash, which is really at play here when we get down to it. That's fraud, plain and simple. It's misrepresentation under the color of law. And I federally, at the federal level, it's even worse. U.S. Code 42, 1983 lets you sue. You can sue any official who deprives you of rights under the guise of authority. Qualified immunity, that's the myth. It only protects if they're acting in good faith, but abusing their power, abusing their discretion, misapplying facts or numbers, that's official oppression. It's conspiracy to defraud, my friends. And if higher ups in the government knew about it and stayed silent, they're culpable. They're responsible. U.S. Code 18, 1986 hits them with even more. Neglect of duty and up to $5 million worth of fines and 30 years in a nice little place like Leavenworth if you're found guilty of that. And RICO laws, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. That could apply here as well because it is an organized revenue-grabbing scheme across multiple jurisdictions here. And then we have these precedents that are beginning to stack up in court. Tyler versus Hennepin County in 2023, a unanimous Supreme Court ruling that home equity theft via tax foreclosures is unconstitutional. They can't sell your house for back taxes and then pocket the surplus. That's straight up theft, my friends. And then there's another case, Pung versus Isabella County. That's bubbling up through the channels of the courts right now, challenging the whole system of property tax. And then you've got a guy by the name of Mitch Wexler in Texas who has filed an amicus brief, filed a few weeks ago, heard by the Texas Supreme Court. And Justice Alito and Barrett have already signaled that their intent is to decide that no tax should be given on unrealized gains. So this is making real headway, and it's not partisan. It's government versus the people. Either side, whether your next door neighbor is a Democrat, you're a Republican, this is government versus us. And the evidence is piling up. Assessor reports at your county, fudging numbers, right? Ignoring the market data, inflating values to meet their budgets. Homeowners hit with liens faster than you can say monopoly money. And in Kansas, I mentioned those 4,000 foreclosures, those poor people. Not that they're poor, but I feel sorry for them. Many were on homes that the tax bill exceeded actual income gains. Really? That's not sustainable. It's predatory. All right, ladies and gentlemen, see how riled up I get about that? We've got to say it out loud. Up against another break. Stay with me. I'll be right back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness, the time flies when you're with a topic that really strikes right to the crux of the corruption that exists throughout this country, in every county, I think, in every state that we have, nationwide, not just in Kansas and Missouri. 10,000 similar cases in the Midwest alone last year, where people forced out of their homes because they can't afford the property tax. It's a war on private property, and it's the private property. You know, the American dream is really owning your home, right? That surmises what the founders meant and what we all mean by the American dream, owning our home. It's the cornerstone of freedom. And property tax prevents that. The pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And, you know, we've got to be brave enough to say this stuff out loud. I know, look, I hear it all the time from where I live in Kansas. Well, we've got a more liberal Supreme Court than they have in California. We'll never stand a chance. Why don't we try? You mean that's it? You're going to just give up because you think we've got a liberal Supreme Court in our state? I'm sure there's many states, even if they're red states, may have liberal Supreme Courts. I'm sure, but we have to at least try. We can't, look, I have no time for people running for office who refuse to try. You know, whether you're talking about voting, getting more people out to vote, et cetera. I had said many times that we ought to make Election Day a state holiday, paid. Everybody gets off, you know, in your state, in Kansas, in Missouri, Tennessee, wherever you live, because you'd be able then to have more people at the polls voting, and you'd have more volunteers in the pool of your volunteers to be poll watchers and so forth. But this question of property tax, it's a big one. And in my estimation, you know, for all of you who are engaged with the upcoming election for governor, for example, you should be talking to people in your state who are running for governor, and the legislature, really, for that matter. And you ought to tell them, hey, Billings has an idea. It's called it's called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which Elon Musk gave us the template for this program. Just put your own state initial before it. In Missouri, MDOGE. Governor Keogh ought to be able to start and implement a MDOGE, the Missouri Department of Government Efficiency, and audit every department that runs up and reports to his office. And he ought to be making inroads with the legislature to make that a permanent position to the cabinet of the governor, and they'd better be doing it in the same way in Kansas. Anyone who runs for governor had better be talking about this, because the money that you will find with KDOJ, and this comes right back to property tax, the money that you will uncover will be in the billions. I promise you, waste, fraud, and abuse. It is that rampant in every state. MDOJ, KDOJ, if you're in Tennessee, TDOJ, if you're in Colorado, CDOJ, whatever, get it done. Insist that your governor candidates and your legislatures are on board with this. And then when you get the billions of dollars recovered from waste, fraud, and abuse, you can then stop, at least the governor can, the state portion of property tax, and then you have to attack the counties, because that's where the real problem is, and that's where it's going to take us to get involved. You know, as I say, determined patriotism, doing the hard work of what it takes to recover the republic from this kind of madness. And we have to vote the people out who are not on this side of the subject with us, and get people who are into office. That's the plan. That's how we do it. And then in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we have to bless ourselves with a certain virtue. And that certain virtue is patience. 2020 taught us an awful lot. We all witnessed the theft of an American presidential election, and we wanted immediate fixes to that problem. Well, in America, and really it's a good thing, justice doesn't always flow immediately. It's meant to take its time and course, and we have to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So gift yourself with the virtue of patience, but work hard in the local level, get involved, engage with determined patriotism. Especially your county board of commissioners might be a great place to start. Your school board's another one. But if we're talking about property tax, that county board of commissioners is key, and you've got to get people on that thing that are conservative and America first, and they understand that this is an unconstitutional deal, property taxes. Now, you will have people laugh at you, just like I've had them laugh at me. Billings, you're crazy. The Supreme Court, we can tax people. Not in this way, and I think I've just laid it out for you. So if you're just joining the program, make sure you go back after 2 o'clock or in this evening, after dinner or whenever, and listen to the first half hour where I laid out exactly why and how property taxes are unconstitutional. It is absolutely an impediment to our right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And there are many cases in the works that you can go to. And go over on Facebook and follow Scott Estes. He's got a group, the Kansas Patriots for Reasonable Property Tax. I'm not looking right at the page right now, but find it. During the break, I'll try to find some information on that and bring it back to you. But it is straight up. It is really my top issue, property taxes, as I look at the upcoming midterm election at the local level. We have got to engage with one another, stand shoulder to shoulder, and call out these politicians and these candidates, and make this and tell them. Billings told, and you have the ammunition now, the laws and the evidence. Now it's time to act. And this is not opinion. This is indictment. Property tax is straight up robbery, all dressed up to make pretty and to make it look as if it's law somehow. In Kansas and Missouri, thousands of homes yanked like ghosts in the daylight because some bureaucrat decided that your house went up, quote unquote, in value while you're still paying the mortgage. And that isn't income. You cannot be taxed on anything that is not income. The Supreme Court has ruled on this. Income requires cash changing hands. And the Supreme Court said in Iser versus McComb, just look it up. No, you can't do it. So with this Supreme Court and with things bubbling up to the surface, I have a great amount of hope that we're going to see some action on this. Not until you sell. Not until you pocket it. It's unrealized gains, and you cannot be taxed on them, period. And yet they're slapping liens on houses, like I said, like monopoly money. I just read excerpts from a 60-page takedown, 37 counts, 14 pages. Valuations are subjective? No way. Not supposed to be. That's not what the USPAP says. It's supposed to be real math, not, oops, looks like your place doubled, pay up. That's fraud, folks. It's fraud. And U.S. Code 42, Section 1983 makes it federal. If they act under the color of law and if they torch your rights, they're in trouble. No shield, and they don't have any qualified immunity. Misapply the facts, abuse of discretion, official oppression, it's all conspiracy. Even if they didn't swing the axe, even if they knew it and they stayed quiet, they're still complacent. Title 1986 nails them. And I'm talking again, $5 million fine to 30 years in Leavenworth. And RICO is on the table. The RICO law is being violated. This is real. Justice Alito, Justice Barrett, already on board. They're saying, and they've said that there is no tax on paper on unrealized gains. Home equity theft, you better believe it's unconstitutional. I could go on, folks. Tyler versus Hennepin, Pung versus Isabella, all of this coming out. Your porch, your kitchen, your swing set, all seized because some assessor needed revenue for your county. Not anymore. Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Up against a break, the top of the hour. This time we do know that Mark Finchem will be joining us at 1:30 for the C block. Professional broadcast lingo there. I'll be right back after you take this trip into capitalism. Stay with us. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings upon you, shedding and shining and sharing intellectual maturity so that you become the most intellectually mature audience in all of Radioland. I told you I would get some information about that property tax page over on Facebook. So go to the page or the group, I guess, Kansas Conservatives for Fair Property Taxes. Kansas Conservatives for Fair Property Taxes. Doesn't matter where you live. You can share ideas, you can share support and stories and get ideas on how you can begin, no matter where you live, to attack the problem of theft. All right, of your home and your farm and your business in the guise of property taxes. Yeah, that's it. So we've got Mark Finchem on deck for the C block coming up at just a little bit after the bottom of the hour. Mark Finchem, an Arizona senator from Arizona, a good friend of mine. Met with him many times in person. Just one of the good guys out there. One of the good guys. And I was watching yesterday. I get like many of you, I admire deeply and miss terribly Rush Limbaugh. And I was watching a clip of his the other day where he's talking about our friend Jimmy Comey and how James Comey is a communist. Now, Comey says was, but you never leave the party. I wish I could do a real Russian accent for you, because you never leave the party. Once a communist, you are always a communist. Thank you. Dos vidanias. Pass the vodka. I was kind of slipping into Hispanic. I don't know. I am no good at that. I am envious of people who can do imitations, voice imitations. But James Comey, communist. Imagine that. Because we know that Brennan is too. The two top dogs at the CIA, the FBI, communists, ladies. We have that clip, Fish, of our friend Rush talking about this. I would like to show everybody who are watching and let everybody who's listening listen to the clip from Rush. I'll give Fish a chance to find that and pull it up. But Comey, Brennan, is justice coming home to roost? Let's take a listen to what Rush said about it.
I mean, if you've thought about it, how many of you have heard or thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican? I have. I've always thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican. I've been told that James Comey is a lifelong Republican. Turns out not to be true. Are you aware that James Comey used to be a communist? In a 2003 interview with New York Magazine, James Comey said before voting for Jimmy Carter in 1980, he'd been a communist. He admitted, I'd moved from communist to whatever I am now. Now, we know that John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, was a communist, or at least had voted for the Communist Party. But I had never heard this about Comey. Now we find out that under Obama, the CIA director and the FBI director both had histories of not just flirtation, but serious immersion into communism. And like the KGB always said, no one ever leaves the KGB. Nobody ever leaves this way of thinking.
Nobody ever leaves this way of thinking. Nobody ever leaves. You will be with us forever. Rush, man, there will never be another Rush Limbaugh, the king, and I miss him every day. But you heard him right there. Folks, look, this is the kind of thing that me included, so many of us were asleep to prior to 2020. Prior to 2020 and the Great Reawakening, because we had lived through the nonsense and the BS of COVID, and then we experienced the theft of a certain American presidential election, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I wonder who that could have been. And we begin to wake up. And my show, I'm honored to say, over on YouTube, that was canceled just 7 months in, after millions of people had started to come by, and after General Flynn was on the program, 170,000 subscribers actively engaged in the program every day, and they cancel it, YouTube does, because I'm obviously conservative. Well, we get the apology letter last week. I'm sorry, your channel was canceled in an error. Welcome back. And so you get the channel back, all of the subscribers. You've been on YouTube, you subscribe for free. It doesn't cost anything. So go over to YouTube, find the channel, Welcome to the Right Side. That's me, and join us over there, because you'll get stuff, exclusive stuff, and these shows and all of that, plus much, much more. But it's time that we confront this, folks, because we're awake. All right, infiltrated from within. And General Mike Flynn dropped that whole thing on Instagram. That's where I saw the Rush Limbaugh quote. I follow Flynn over on Instagram, and I saw the Rush Limbaugh quote that we all just listened to. Comey openly admitted to being a communist before he voted for Jimmy Carter in 1980. And then, of course, as Rush mentioned, John Brennan, the ex-CIA chief, Mr. Communist Party of America himself, who voted, get this, voted for a guy by the name of Gus Hall, who was the Communist Party United States candidate for president in 1976. So these are not fringe accusations. These are not stories from Kookville, ladies and gentlemen. They're from their own mouths. Comey and Brennan have admitted this. They've said it. Now, they say that they grow out of it. I've grown out of communism. But actions, right, speak louder than their words. No one grows out of communism once you're in it and you deeply believe in it. I mean, for gosh sakes, Bernie Sanders took his wife on their honeymoon to Moscow. Now, who does that other than a communist? God knows when they were married, based on their age, probably what, the 50s or the 60s? Back in the height of the communist, threat in America. So these, I guess my point is, these men rise up to occupy the pinnacle of our intelligence community. the FBI, the CIA, and they used that power. They used that power to undermine America from within. And Flynn nailed it. And he was a victim. He was the victim, the first victim, the ultimate and the most crucified of all of the victims. He said that their actions reflect a dangerous subversion in America. And we've got to fix it right now. Now, our side, the conservative side, fixes it by doing what I've told you. We engage in determined patriotism, the hard work of getting involved in our local levels of government. That's the plan. That's how we recover America. That's what the founding fathers intended. We don't commit anarchy. And by the way, we don't return anarchy for the sake of anarchy. I want to see perp walks. I want to see these guys in leg chains and orange suits. Well, maybe we will, but hang on a minute. You know, yes, everybody has this sense. We all want accountability. We all want justice. But beware, be very cautious of the people out there who are saying, we want retribution. There's a difference between justice and retribution, my friends. And we conservatives don't stand with retribution. As I say, we don't return tyranny, even upon those who tried to inflict tyranny on us. We resort to justice, and there's a big difference. All right, up against another break. At the bottom of the hour, Mark Finchem will be joining us. Stick around for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be right back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings upon you again. Happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. Mark Finchem coming up at the bottom of the hour. James Comey, Brennan. Lifelong Republicans, yeah, right. Communist roots, that explains, when you look at the entire gamut of what we experience with their hatred and their animus towards President Trump, Comey, Brennan, the whole, Clapper, Strzok, Steele, all of them. Pelosi, Schumer. I am convinced, Pelosi's out of the game, but she still, gives sound bites from time to time. Schumer is still in the game. He's terrified of AOC and the radical left wing of their party. And I would like to think that Schumer could have a decent conversation with and maybe even get along with President Trump if it weren't for AOC and the squad and that Kookville bunch of communists that are over there in their radical left wing. But it explains all of these connections that we hear now of communism, of the hate. And you don't just go from admiring Marxist ideologies to leading the FBI. I mean, keep in mind, the FBI, where he weaponized the Bureau against political enemies at the beck and call of Obama and others. And it ties in also with the theme that Barack Obama, tried to disguise as a friendly campaign slogan. America must be fundamentally transformed. Transformed, and I say this again, that as soon as I heard him say that, anti-American. That is the most anti-American statement that anyone running for office, much less president, could ever utter. America needs to be fundamentally transformed. Keep that in mind as we begin to talk about Comey and Brennan and their allegiances to the Communist Party. Fundamentally transform America. Brennan, how did a guy who voted for a Soviet Union-backed candidate in the United States get cleared to lead the CIA? Can I just ask that question? How did that happen? Because the deep state is there protecting its own. You know, the liberals will say, well, Doug, those were just youthful indiscretions. Youthful indiscretions, the foolishness of our youth. Look, those weren't foolish, youthful indiscretions, ladies and gentlemen. They were activities that shaped the career that both of them had of subversion, from drone strikes killing American citizens under President Obama, look it up, to spying on Americans, to put on Catholics, etc. This and you know, this is not ancient history. It's the root of the scandals that have rocked our nation during the past 8 years. Comey and Brennan were architects of the Russia hoax, spying on Trump, targeting patriots. And now in 2025, justice is finally catching up. Comey was indicted, as you all know, last month, lying to Congress and obstruction of justice, the same crimes that they tried to throw at President Trump's allies. Brennan is currently under fire as well, and an FBI probe is underway for perjury in the Russia investigation. And Trump warned us, right? He said long ago these guys could face some jail time. Their communist leanings, well, it explains a lot, doesn't it? It explains that the anti-American playbook, divide us, weaponize agencies against conservatives, cause chaos whenever you can. We have seen it. Hindsight's 2020. And it also explains the effects of that anti-American campaign slogan, America must be fundamentally transformed. They want to fundamentally transform America away from divine providence and from the intent of the founding fathers. There's no doubt about it. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. We're talking about men, Comey and Brennan especially, who approved the visas for 9/11 hijackers to come into this country and pushed narratives that endangered lives. I mean, this is infiltration at the highest level of our government. And it's happened in our schools, in our media, and now the government. It's like these have been, they have been embedded for decades. I've told you before, there's a good book out there. I don't know if I have it sitting right here on my desk, but Communism Under a Microscope, or The Truth About Communism. This in America, this transformation has been going on covertly and subtly. Obama's the first one to say it out loud, but it's been going on for 189 years. And I'm not making that up. Since the late 1890s, you know, we had three giants of capitalism, John Rockefeller, John Dewey, and Andrew Carnegie, come into the picture, vastly wealthy. All of them participated in capitalism and became wealthy because of it. But every one of those three men were socialists, self-avowed socialists. It's not my opinion, folks. This is not conjecture. This is what they said. And they began then to go, they met and they formed these foundations that had money to give. They wanted to begin to transform America. The first stop for them was our institutions of education. And when have you ever known an educational institution who didn't want money? So they gave them money, but if you get our money, you have to adopt our curriculum. And that's how it begins. They began to infiltrate our schools, our kids, and the professors, et cetera, and it brings us up to current day. Your kids are, or if you're lucky, were, being indoctrinated on college campuses by Marxist professors. I think this is all a matter of record. I'm not telling you anything new here, and it's not coincidence. It is a plan, a purposeful plan to fundamentally transform America. And Obama is the first one to say it out loud. And they all have their meetings, you'd better believe it, behind the scenes. I don't know if Skype calls, conference calls, whatever. And they coordinate and they plan. America must be fundamentally transformed. Think about it. Think about what we've seen divide us, try to dilute the very identity of America. How would we go about that? You know, this is them talking on their, how would we go about, what do we do to dilute the American identity? Well, look at what's going on in France. Look what's going on in Germany. Immigration, boy, they've got it. France doesn't have any sense of self-awareness and no self-identity. Maybe that's it. Maybe we open up the borders. Let's open up the borders. That's it. Millions upon millions of people coming in to dilute the American identity. People who have no intention at all of assimilating into our society. And the dilution of the American identity begins. And oh, by the way, give them a box of ballots when they come over and tell them if they fill out this box of ballots, we'll give them free food, free health care, free room and board. Just give them to the guy in the white van over there and we'll take good care of you. And they do. And oh, by the way, chaos. Yes, chaos will rain down upon us because we're going to let in the bad guys too. Millions of people coming in and thousands of people who just don't like us. And that's a real threat today. I spoke with Eric Trump about this on Friday, right here on this show. I have been saying it for 5 years. There are people who are in this country as a result of our border fiasco who want to do greater harm than what we saw in 9/11. And it's real. And we've got to be on guard and on watch. I'm not fear-mongering. I am being practical in our approach to what we know is a current threat. It's purposeful and it's set in place in motion because the radical left movement in this country believes that if we see enough of it, we see enough chaos, we're not going to turn to each other for help. We're going to want to turn to the big government. That's the truth. That's what they plan. That's how they organize. If it doesn't happen organically, they plan it out. Chaos. It's their patron demon. All right, Mark Finchem coming up next when we come back from the break. Stay with us. I'll be right back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are where you are called to be, the right side. Doug Billings here with you, and reminding you that coming up in the next few weeks, we will have a virtual plethora of Tier 1 Patriot guests and important folk of all kinds of genres coming on, but none, perhaps none better than what I'm going to introduce to you now, the Honorable Senator Mark Finchem. Mark, welcome to the right side.
Wow, you have really set the bar high. Thank you very much. It's been a minute, hasn't it, brother?
My gosh, brother. Yeah, well, from the steps of Mar-a-Lago to events in Arizona to right here now. But yes, we haven't spoken in a few months, but I consider you a brother and a friend. I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, and I've listened to almost the whole show. You are on a total rant. I think Rush would be very proud of you for what you're doing. I mean, you're calling out the communists that have infiltrated American government, and they've been at it a long time. And I'm glad that you took this subject on because they don't teach this in high school civics anymore. That's why we have so many adults who are clueless as to what's going on around them. They know something's wrong, but they can't put their finger on it. Well, I think we've got about 15 minutes to have a conversation about that.
We do. Well, and you've seen it firsthand. You've seen you've been a victim of the deep state election integrity issues in Arizona. You've been at the tip of the spear with that. Arizona, in a lot of ways, is the epicenter in this republic for election integrity. And the deep state, this communist movement, this anti-American, Mark, the Democrat Party does not exist anymore. It simply doesn't. The John F. Kennedy Democrat Party, for God's sakes, the Democrat Party of Bill Clinton doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
This combining of communism and socialism, I call them the Communist Socialist Party. They're clearly not pro-America.
Well, and this started back with Nikita Khrushchev. And, he's credited with saying, we'll take over America without firing a shot. Well, that's not exactly what he said. People have tried to massage that statement. He said, paraphrase, because I don't speak Russian, socialism will overtake capitalism and the people will bury capitalism. That's what he said. Okay.
Yep.
Well, he knew, in fact, the whole Leninist Marxist thing is to infiltrate your enemy. There's a great book that the Chinese Communist Party has written called Unrestricted Warfare. I would urge your readers to go out and get it. You got to read it because it's a textbook on what we're seeing right now. This has been at work for decades. I mean, these, forgive the expression, asshats like Comey and Brennan and Clapper and Clinton, they've been at work. They're like a worm that has been eating through the structural wood of America for decades. Hillary Clinton was fired from the special counsel by Ken Starr for lying. Wow, go figure.
Yeah.
So you've got James Comey, who is now crying, poor wolf. Okay, this is what infiltrators do. They use the weakness of the host. They're a parasite. They use the weakness of the host to worm their way into the host, into places. Clay Higgins uses this term, and God bless him for using, to those men in high perches. They get into a high perch, and then they are able to wage war from within. I knew the moment Barack Obama said, we are out to fundamentally change America, I knew exactly what that meant. I came from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it was in the bleacher seats to see what happened to Chicago and Illinois. Chicago politics going all the way back to Richard Daley. At least they were just criminals, okay?
Right.
They weren't,
right.
I don't think they were communists. They were criminals, all right? They did extortion and murder and okay. They weren't communists. In a perverse kind of way, they were kind of capitalists because that's what they were about. They wanted to exploit the opportunities there. So now we've got Barry Osoto and Joe, I can't remember what city I'm in, Biden, have fully implemented the Cloward and Piven strategy. Now, for people that don't know what that is, look it up. Wikipedia, as much as I hate Wikipedia, Wikipedia actually has the first paragraph on Cloward and Piven, has a very good explanation of what that is. It's describing what we have lived through for the last 10 years. And that is open the borders so that you can flood the country with illegals. Didn't work out so well for Germany, Great Britain, France. Their people are now in total revolt against the government that put them in that predicament. I just came back from Germany and they're scratching their heads wondering, how do we undo the damage? Well, you've got an MP in Great Britain. I forget the lady's name, but God bless her. She was calling for the immediate repeal of Sharia law all throughout Great Britain. Here's the question to ask. How the hell did that ever get implemented? Apparently, King Charles was asleep at the switch, or whoever the queen was, Queen Elizabeth II, whatever. I don't pay attention to the royals because they're largely ineffective. No offense to my brothers and sisters in Great Britain, but the monarchy is a clown show. I just created an international incident, I'm sure.
Well, and Mark, so Islam, I mean, look, this is the United States of America. I'm real big on the intent of the founding fathers. The United States of America is a Judeo-Christian nation. They did not intend that we should have a mosque on every corner in America. I'm sorry. The founding fathers just did not intend that. You've got people you mentioned in England, France, Germany that have outlawed burqas and so forth. Women, Islamic women can't wear these things anymore because it's a shield for suicide bombers, and it's a division within the society. And that's what they want. They want America I've not been to Germany in about 5 years prior to COVID. But when I was in corporate America, I used to go there all the time. And I saw the Muslim communities just bursting at the seams, open borders, everybody coming in. And I was going, where are the German people? I'm walking through cities and towns where I feel like I might as well be in Cairo.
They were put down by their leaders. I mean, to your point about our founding fathers, okay, we're coming up on the birthday of the Marine Corps. And I'm sure people have heard the Marine Corps hymn, "To the Shores of Tripoli." Why? People don't know what that means. It's, some line in a song. Okay, let's have a history lesson for a moment. From our very founding, we were at war with Islam. The U.S. Navy was constantly at war with Islam and went to Tripoli to attack the raiders. They were raiding commerce. They were thieves. They were murderers. They took people into slavery. Okay. So for those people that don't know what Islam is about, you better get your face in a book and understand that it is antithetical to the Christian Judeo ethos. And it is not at all a part of America. Now, if somebody wants to come to this country and assimilate, that's the whole problem. They refuse to assimilate. They refuse to accept our norms. They want to set up their own religious state. They're a theocracy within the United States. Now, I'm sorry I went down this rabbit hole because I really wanted to talk about Comey, Brennan, and Clapper, and Clinton, and Rice. All of these individuals, in fact, the 5 CIs, the community of intelligence, every one of the 52 that signed on to that letter should be prosecuted for treason. They were engaged in a coordinated effort to overthrow the United States government and a sitting president. Nancy Pelosi, she needs to be on that list. She engineered January 6th. We now have the evidence. The FBI now knows 237 agents. Here's an interesting piece, and Clay Higgins is all over this like ugly on an ape. All of the officers that badged in for work at the National Capitol the morning of January 6th then went in and changed clothes and became Trump supporters. You know, every 100%. Damn one of them.
100%.
Every single one of them should be prosecuted. Every one of them.
There were
Nancy
definitely...
Pelosi? Yep. Okay, so fraud vitiates everything. That's a legal theory that it even vitiates, Nancy, your protection as Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House. You committed crimes. You're not excused from committing crimes just because you're the Speaker of the House. You got to live under the same laws we got to live under. So from Nancy Pelosi all the way to Adam Shifty Schiff, every single one of them needs to be examined with a microscope because of what they did. They put Americans in prison on a BS argument that they created an insurrection. Okay, time out a second. You're telling me that 1,200 people, maybe 300 that went into the building, can overthrow the United States government? That's not even an incredible story, all right? And then we find out that Muriel Bowser was part of it. And that Nancy Pelosi said, no, we don't need to have the protection of the U.S. Armed Forces to protect the Capitol. We're good. Knowing full well that she was an agent provocateur herself. So these are individuals who have infiltrated our government, who are obsessed with the idea of creating a new world order. And brother, it's not you and me they hate. We're just in the way. It's not even President Trump they hate. I mean, they do hate him, but they hate our Constitution. Because as long as that Constitution exists, there is a lifeboat in the world for freedom. Now, you look across the world, the only other place right now that I can see that is as free, Argentina. Milei.
Milei, yeah, Javier Milei.
Probably El Salvador, Nicaragua. Okay, they're probably on the list. But even Canada, our neighbors to the north, when you've got, and I'm going to call them the Gestapo of the Canadian police forces arresting pastors for preaching against the government?
Archer Pawlowski, who's a friend of this program, been on many times. He's one of those pastors. Yep.
Yeah. So now you have the worldwide domination of the Marxist front. That's what this is all about. Communism on steroids. And until the people stand up, I mean, you think back to the French resistance. French resistance fought back on Vichy and the Nazis viciously.
Yep. Yeah. Mark, never enough time to talk about things like this, but I'm grateful for you, my friend. We'll have you back on the show. Looking forward to getting together with you in person one of these days again, like the old days. Thanks for standing shoulder to shoulder with me. Ladies and gentlemen, we're up against another break. The Honorable Mark Finchem, a senator from the great state of Arizona. I'll be right back.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I don't want you to lose your momentum with all of this, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. The Right Side, Doug Billings. And thanks to Mark Finchem, who was with us just a moment ago. I feel strongly, obviously, I hope you can tell. Comey signed off on the FISA warrants. Remember those? The Steele dossier funded by Hillary Clinton to justify spying on the Trump campaign. You all remember this. It's all coming back now to roost, all of this. Brennan, he was the one who briefed President Obama on the Russian interference narrative, which turned out to be a scam and a setup. And all of this is just really the tip of the iceberg. Comey leaked classified memos to the New York Times to trigger the Mueller probe. That's an act of pure sabotage. He lied to Congress about the dossier's verification, claiming that all of the accusations against him are salacious, unverified nonsense. Only after using the dossier to survey and surveil illegally American citizens. Now, John Brennan, not to be outdone, has been accused of perjury for downplaying the CIA's role in that hoax. This is treasonous. And Mark Finchem was correct. There will be potentially treason charges. Now, I say that, but we have to give ourselves the grace of wisdom and patience here, because there's an awful lot of us out there that call for retribution. But retribution is not what we're after. That's what the left does. We are after justice. And justice doesn't always happen as speedily as we want it to. We don't return tyranny with more tyranny. You know, I want to see Comey walked out just like they walked out Roger Stone or Peter Navarro. Well, I want justice. I don't want a clown show. I don't need to see people paraded around. I want justice. Brennan is the one that pushed the whole, the Russia hacked the DNC story, but declassified the documents to show that it was a Clinton op. Fast forward then, you go all of that in the past. You all remember that. That all went on, the Mueller report, the investigation, the lawfare. Trump had to spend his own personal fortune to defend, and that was their goal. They wanted to prevent him from being president. They didn't want him to be dog catcher, and they wanted to break him financially. Well, he's a billionaire. Well, folks, look, I'm not, I don't fancy myself a Pulitzer Prize winning mathematician, but I do know that $1 billion or 10 billion or whatever Trump is worth is not a infinite amount of money. So it could financially ruin a person if they had to go and spend years and years of exorbitant legal fees. Now we're up to 2025, and we have now the FBI under Kash Patel investigating both of these gentlemen for the potential false statements that we've heard reported elsewhere. Congress and, lying to Congress, the wrongdoing in the entire Russia probe. Department of Justice sources are confirming that we have probes into perjury, conspiracy, and yes, the Department of Justice has said that there is a probe into treasonous accusations in declassified reports that they're combing through at this moment. So Trump called it out. He said years ago, these guys are going to face prison, or at least they could. So Comey indicted last month for obstruction and false statements, facing up to 10 years on those charges. Brennan is still under the microscope and under investigation for creating the entire collusion myth, with inquiries that were stalling due to internal purges and so forth, ramping up now under the new leadership that we have in this country. Thank goodness. And their communist ties, I believe, explain it all. Comey's Marxist youth, folks, it led to a career bending the rules for an ideology. Brennan's vote for Gus Hall, are you kidding me? It foreshadowed his anti-American stances, like approving 9/11 hijacker visas to come into this country and to push drone attacks that killed innocent people, including Americans. Under Obama, they turned intel agencies into political weapons, unmasking opponents and doxing them and leaking to media about them. It's straight out of the communist playbook: control the narrative and silence dissent. And the hypocrisy is thick. Comey, so far, we haven't seen any perp walk. We probably won't for these felonies. While Trump allies like Peter Navarro, shackled and taken out of his home for a misdemeanor, ladies and gentlemen. It's a two-tiered justice system. The radical liberal moans about this, but that's because they're masters at projection and at gaslighting. Everything they blame us for, they themselves are guilty of doing. And there's more to it. Comey's indictment stems from obstructing a congressional investigation into sensitive leaks within the government, the same kind that he orchestrated against President Trump. Now, he pleaded not guilty on October 8th, a few days ago. He claimed that this is all selective prosecution. But we have witnesses that are flipping, ladies and gentlemen, undermining the case against him and exposing his lies. One central witness already contradicted his key claims, showed Comey's testimony was fabricated in order to cover his tracks in the Russia saga. So we're seeing it unravel. We're seeing the witnesses flip sides here already. Brennan's inquiry, it's about false testimony on the origins of the Russia deal, the Steele dossier, because he claimed it was solid factual evidence, but it was forged under the directive of President Obama. And watch out for Todd Blanche. Not a good guy. Not a good guy. You may have heard it here first. Todd Blanche. Mark it down. October 13th, Billings said Todd Blanche, not a good guy. Brennan, declassified evidence from July of 25 is telling us that Brennan and Obama, Clapper, remember Clapper, conspired to create false narratives on this whole Russia-Trump BS, labeling it a treasonous conspiracy. That's what the new DOJ is calling it, and that's what Kash Patel has called it, treasonous conspiracy. Ratcliffe referred Brennan to the FBI for a criminal probe into his forgery episodes, and there was hurdles in the way. Tulsi Gabbard's the DNI, the purge revoking clearances from 37 or so officials. That's all in the works, and they're looking through all of this. But they're not isolated slip-ups, folks. These are systematic abuses of power that we have seen play out in front of us. Comey mishandled the Clinton email probe. Remember that one? He gave her a pass on that entire deal. Remember destroying her computer with a hammer? You know, what'd you do? Bleach your hard drive? What does that mean? Pour bleach on it? She played dumb. Remember that whole charade? And then Brennan expanded the CIA domestic spying ring, violating charters within this country. If you were Catholic, you were spied on, because they look at the Catholic Church as the enemy because of its staunch and millennial old, just century old stance on the right to life and abortion, and the stance for truth. The only institution that hasn't changed with regard to religion over the decades, millenniums, and centuries. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your daily dose of intellectual maturity is at its end. I'll see you tomorrow and every day this week, noon to 2 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, the right side. We're in this thing together, you guys. You got to believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the set of my show, The Right Side. This is where it all happens. This is where I dispense to you intellectual maturity, and you become members of the most intellectually mature audience in all of Radioland. Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.